Hello, welcome to Season 2, Episode 7, Number 11 of our On the Knuckle podcast series. I'm Gaz Vogan. Obviously, this is Beggsy, and because we're together again, it means we're in another contest. How's it going, Beggsy?
Good, and because we're together again, it means we've been snowboarding.
We have. And
once again, how did I?
Best day of the season, for sure.
Yeah.
Woke up to what, 20 centimeters?
Yeah, enough. It was on nothing, but it was enough to get a few good runs in before training today, and we got first lifts up, bit of athlete priority. And
got to snake the Americans in the queue again. It was worth changing my bindings from my parkboard to my powerboard. Great day, 20 kilometers of power, and bluebird. So amazing.
Yeah, it was good.
So we're here in Aspen to talk about Calgary Halfpipe last week, which some of us got to Calgary on the 28th of December, went there over New Year's. Some of us were lucky enough to have the extra time at home.
Yeah, it was good to be at home for New Year's and a little bit of extra time with the family. Otherwise, it would have made the amount of days I gained traveling back from these overseas events. I probably would have only had about 5 days at home. So this way, at least I got like 8 or 9 days at home.
Yeah, because you live so bloody far away. So before we get fully into the episode, Olympic Excitometer. We're now getting pretty close. It's now this year. It's next month, actually. How are you feeling?
At a 7. I'm
solid.
Apprehensive about the next 2 weeks. We're, like you said, we're deep in the comp cycle with Aspen and Larks. There's a couple of slopestyle styles we've got to get off. There's a couple of pipes. There's some weather coming. It hasn't snowed all season in a lot of places. So
including the venue.
Yeah, including the venue. So I can feel that impending timeline, and it's pushing close to Milan.
Yeah. I've dropped to a full 2. This is week 7 on the road. Crashed and burned after Calgary. Considered telling US Customs that I was there to work and find a place to live, so they would deny me entry. I could go home. Decided not the best idea. Actual kind of Olympic fever coming out of Calgary Pipe was pretty good. Good contest. Missed a lot of the teams, which we'll get into, but felt the result went well. And it was my first half pipe head judging of the season, so it felt nice. And I think, we're into the intense back-to-back double headers, and no real weather windows. But anyway, into the Calgary World Cup contest review. All right, so third stunt ditch of the season, third half pipe of the season. Talk to us about the pipe conditions.
So early season pipe, it's a low snow year. So I guess each one they've been battling to get them open. We've been lucky to have a comp. This one, you kind of get those things that go along with an early season pipe. Each cut it gets better and better, but there's some little quirks that always seem to happen early season, kinks, a little bit of oververt in places. There's things that just happen to those early season pipes that as they cut it and get more dish, it's better. So, and with Calgary, it's always a slightly shorter pipe too. It's always seemed to be a bit colder there. So there's those things that the athletes battle with.
And it also tends to be, it feels a little bit shallower than other pipes that we've had, like Copper or Secret Garden and Aspen as well. So it felt like as soon as an athlete made a slight mistake, it was so much harder to recover from any like little edge changes in transition to then maintain that amplitude. So it was one of those little mistakes tended to be costly.
Totally. And I think the riders are getting used to riding these early season pipes. They're dealing with it again here in Aspen. But like you said, I think with that one too, it's a slightly smaller pipe. It's not China or Lark. So the Calgary one, it's slightly on that lower scale. It seems a bit more open and not quite as tall as a Larks or a China, which was huge this year.
Yeah, and I know 24th of December, they were still and ahhing whether with all the warm temperatures, etc., they could actually go ahead with it. So fair play to the organisers and the shapers for actually getting that done and into a comp position. First day of training definitely ran a bit weird. Second day with the extra cut after it being ridden through for both skiers and snowboarders, we saw a lot more out of day 2 of training.
Yeah, and by the time the comp came, it was riding good. So.
Yeah, it was perfect again. So, but it was, as you say, shorter, and we're into that conversation of 4 hits versus 5 hits, whereas elsewhere would be in 5 hits versus 6 hits in a run.
Yeah,
and I feel like Calgary's almost a 4.5 hitter. One of those, some of the people doing 4 hits that it looked like they could have squeezed an extra one in, and we had that conversation with a few riders. It did feel like they needed a bit more amplitude to fully make it a 4-hit run.
Yeah, I'm hearing rumours there's discussions underway to lengthen the earthworks and to make it longer. So maybe one day we'll have a longer pipe there.
Yeah. Anyway, so format-wise, we had 22 women, 36 men. And this is where we'll get into the men's qualification shortly, but as a bit of an overview, made the decision to keep it as one single heat for both, or one heat for women, one heat for men.
Yeah, that was probably a good decision in the end, I think. Usually we stay pretty firm on that 30 and we don't like to go above that. It's easier, but when you're talking only a few extra athletes and you're taking a few extra to the finals, I think it's better to just to have that one, and then again, you're not battling with time or double up or anything like that. So.
Yeah, we were taking 14 men through to finals, so you're kind of looking around like a 37% cut, which felt doable. Would feel the pressure in terms of fitting all those runs into the point scale, but it felt like a much fairer outcome to the athletes outside of finals, so 15th and down to 36th, to have that single panel judged. Also saved me as head judge a lot of stress of managing double up, which is just double up is always the last outcome, and I wanted to run the risk that we could get it all done nicely.
Like you say, those lower positions that count in an Olympic run-in, and a lot of people that were at that comp were there specifically for that, to chase points. So to be able to drop high and low score and have that 6 judges, I think was a good call on the day.
Yeah, and it was a gamble that paid off.
So first out on that one was Rochelle Weinberg from the USA.
Yeah, so good finish for her. One of her best was back 5 mute, had a short grab, front 5 melon, very touchy grab, backside crail, which is kind of cool to see. That was the nicest executional trick of the run. Front 7 melon, which she kind of under rotated, and then a cap 3 mute, and then an alley oop back 1 at the end. So squeezing in the 6 hits. Had a bit of amplitude, but Konradtel, who was the last one in, had more amplitude, and that was kind of that deciding factor. And then just lacking that switchback rotation. Did have the alley-oop in there, but those women that qualified through to final, quite a significant amount of them had that switchback rotation as well. So came down a bit to execution in terms of the short grabs, the rotation, and then tiny bit on amplitude.
Cool. So that takes us into finals.
Yeah, that was quick, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Notable shout out Siwoo Choi from Korea, who did a huge frontside air on the first hit, and I've got down great tweak on my notes. So pretty outstanding frontside air then into a backside air, front 5 melon, back 5 mute, and then an under rotated front 7. So it was the heavy edge on the front 7 that cost that spot in finals. Had better amp than we saw from Rochelle and Coda Ethel, the last one in, but just lacked, again, that switch backside direction. But notable shout out for that frontside air.
Nice. So does that take us into finals?
It does, yeah. And the only kind of cool thing was there was 3 Canadian women qualifying through, which is good for the local crowd.
Yeah, and good for those riders. I think so for finals it was cold out. I think it was minus 15.
Bloody freezing. I still judge in shorts because the judge stand was nice and warm. We also had a pretty sizable crowd, which was awesome.
Yeah, there was definitely a good crowd down there. I think it's like a low scoring one for a women's pipe final. I think there was just the way it...
Yeah, and because of the first day of training, we didn't see much. The second day, we saw a lot more. We kind of just wanted to leave the space just in case, because we knew some of the runs that these ladies could put together, we didn't want to cut ourselves short at the top. And it was night finals as well, which is always a sick atmosphere.
Yeah. You just never know with those ones. I think it's best to leave the space and not have to use it in finals. You're dealing with less competitors too. So unlike qualies where we need to spread it out and use those rankings, finals, it's not as hard.
Yeah. And the really interesting thing that doesn't affect the judging of the event at all, but was that no one that qualified through to finals had ever won a World Cup before. So we were kind of guaranteed.
Oh, new winner.
So that's always kind of cool. But yeah. So
first one off the podium was Yu Lang from China, who had a frontside air, back 5 mute, front 7, cap 7, front 5.
Yeah. So just the only thing kept her off the podium was missing the switchbacks. The variety criteria wasn't up there. Some similarities with our podium athletes. And then short grab on the cap 7 towards the end, and a little edge on both of the 7s, and slightly less amp than our podium athletes. So good run for her, I would have said. Looked pretty good, and probably her best finish of her career.
Yeah, it was a good one for her, and then there was quite a big step up to Isabel Leutscher from Switzerland.
Yeah, also first time on a World Cup podium, which is quite cool.
Yeah, and she had a nice run. Front 7, cab 7, or front 7 Indy, cab 7 mute, backside alley-oop mute, into back 5 mute to front 7 melon.
Yeah, and really wanted to reward the alley-oop mid-run, because that's something we've spoken about a bit in terms of maintaining the speed out of the alley-oop to then continue into the next hit. Always beneficial. She was also lacking a switchback, and a little bit of grab variety. It was kind of amazing that we could hear with all the mutes that were going on, but it was decent amplitude and consistent from start to finish.
Yeah, so that was good for her to end up on the podium for her first podium. And that takes us to second, who's Wu Xiaotong from China, who had a very similar run to third place, but she swapped out the front seven first hit for a switchback 5. So she upped the variety, the progression, and the difficulty up the top.
Yeah.
And that was probably the deciding factor in that one, I think.
That
all in one hit.
Yeah, it was a very intelligently put together run, considering like the similarity of tricks between her and Isabel Locha, but then gets all the directions in with the variety. Then cab 7, Ellen had a slight edge on it. Then alley-oop backward mute, but I had that as +3 on the Gaz scale. So really nice amplitude on that with the alley-oop. And then back 5 and front 7.
Yeah, so basically the same run as Isabel, but just instead of the front 7 at the top, she went switchback 5. So that adds that fourth direction and the difficulty and the progression, and did it all at the first hit. So there's a lot of consequence and risk in that. So yeah, like you say, a smart decision, and it put her on second.
Yep, and good amplitude, tiny bit edgy on the 7s, so execution a tiny bit down, but variety up there. Lacking a bit of grab variety, everything was left-handed. But again, that's a tiny little separator just to kind of make a note of.
Yeah, I guess the only thing she really lacked was the rotational difficulty. Out of first place, she had the front 9. So first was Elizabeth Hoskins.
Yep. First Canadian woman in over 24 years to win a World Cup halfpipe on home soil.
Yeah.
There's a pub quiz answer for you if you're
totally. She got the job done on her first run. She went front 7 melon, Haken 7 mute, front cork 5 Indy, back 5 mute into front 9 melon, and that's where she had that extra rotational difficulty down the bottom there.
Yeah, that was kind of the separating point. Had really good amplitude first hit, front 7, and kind of further down the run. But front 9 of the run, very similar tricks. Good axis as well, because went front 7, Haken 7, rather than just having a cab 7 in there. So gets the variety in the axis for sure. And was missing switch backside, but there was enough of a difficulty boost to balance out the kind of variety difference.
And good execution. She holds her grabs. Yeah. Everything was well put together.
Very solid riding. It's probably one of the best I've seen on ride.
So that's it for the women.
That was it for the women's. So very cool final. Great for the Canadians to have a Canadian on the podium. Very cool medals in terms of there were the snow rodeo cowboy hats, which I tried so hard to get my hands on.
And the belt buckle.
Yeah. I feel like the contest just one up in each other in terms of medals, because we had the Grand Prix World Cup or wrestling belts in copper, and then now to belt buckles, and pressure's on for the future contest organisers. But all right, into the men's. So this was the tough one in qualies for sure, with as we mentioned, the 36 men. And we kind of made a bit of a call that 36 is tough to get into that kind of 100-point scale. Sounds weird because obviously there's way more points available, but it just gets really tight with all the similar runs. So we made a very conscious decision to throw the really the good runs high up into the 90s, just to kind of clear them and get them out of the way, and those worse landed runs drop down a little bit low. So our kind of crash range had dropped down as well, purely because the points don't matter, and that's something we can't emphasize enough.
We say that at every TCM. It's like, especially in qualies where we're taking a big amount down to a small amount, it's like, don't worry about the scores, it's just about the ranking, and it's just a tool to fit you in. So they do spread out, and what maybe a lower difficulty run could end up in the 90s, because that's all we're going to see that day. So
and that was a conversation I had with a few riders and coaches afterwards. Was Valentino Gazzelli qualified him first, and we gave him a 94. It was undeniably, full panel agreed, the best run of qualifications. And we're like, cool, let's just get it out of the way. Let's not trap ourselves further down the range. And some people said it wasn't a 94 run, but they agreed it was the best run on the day.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to get that understanding.
By having that lower, you just would have got more boxed in the 70s and 80s, and those ones where everyone's doing more similar runs.
Exactly.
So it was pretty close on the bubble for that one. I think it was a split panel, 3 and 3, and just out for that one was Florian Lechter of Austria.
Yeah, so interestingly, one of the two Lechner brothers riding, one rides for Austria, one rides for Germany. No idea why, but that always comes to mind whenever we see him on the start sheet. Bear went front 7, cab 10, front 9, back 7, and switchback 9. Short grab on the switchback 9, had the directions, but the execution on the grabs was just not good enough to get himself up into that kind of bubble spot.
Yep. The other one just out is Louis Vita.
Yeah, so I had front double 12 Indy into back 9 tail, and this was kind of the sticking point of the run because he landed low, edged out, and just kind of lost all of his speed and amplitude. Still managed to get the front double 10 gorilla, which is very much the Louis Vito trick in the pipe. and then F7 Indy, and then front crippler. So, and you could kind of see uh, those last few hits from the front double 10, they were just kind of just out the lip. So it's kind of a shame because he had the most difficult run from training, arguably, or from qualies, arguably with the front double 12. But just landed on the back nine, and that just sadly suckered him. As we said, shallow pipe in Calgary is hard to recover from.
Yeah, it's those low landings they really dock you for the rest of the run. And like you say, a small pipe, there's no coming back from that. You don't have the transition to bring it up.
Yeah, and was impressed with Louis because he did talk to us in training and said, "Don't dock him if he only does 4 hits," because he was struggling as hell to get the 5th hit in, and then managed in his run at least. So props to Louis, but yeah, it was a bit of a shame.
Yeah. And just in for that one was Cade Martin, who had switchback 5, cab double 10 mute, front 9 tail, back 9 mute, into front double 10 Indy. It was just a slightly short grab on the back 9 mute.
Yeah, but at least had the 4 directions. So tick the variety criteria. Amplitude was consistent and decent. And
everything was there. It was just a slightly short grab. So,
yeah.
like I said, split panel on that, but it was pretty close.
Yeah. And then, like, a lot of these were like very similar runs, all that difference in criteria, some preferring variety, etc. So that's kind of you end up with. I feel like you always get quite a few split panels around pipe bubbles.
Always at pipe. Even in this one, it was in the finals, it was close in the 70s. There was like 7 or 8 scores down in the 70s. There was a lot of people from 2nd to 5th that were all over the shop. Like, it was just, like you say, there's different criteria that people focus on. So it's not as unanimous, especially in those off the podium positions.
Yeah, and I guess getting into finals, it was a little bit nerve-wracking with those kind of 2nd through 7th because there was, a lot of tight scores, and our little head judge tablets tells us how many ranking spots we had between them in terms of the 0.25, 0.5, and those numbers were getting drastically smaller towards the end of front 1. So it was a little bit of riding the lightning from a head judge side of things, crossing your fingers and kind of hoping for the best. The one athlete that might have actually upset things was Sean Lee, but he like slipped out on the front 10 on his last hit, so kind of escaped any confusion there. So it wasn't the best spread of range in terms of head judging, but we did get the right result in the end. That's kind of my learning curve, is to probably, as we did in qualies, spread those runs up a little bit higher into the 80s to give us room for maneuvering.
It's tough in pipe because you try and spread it out, and then when people disagree, their rank pulls those numbers closer. So it's always quite tight. I guess one for me for standout was Wang Zhang of China, who just went massive. Like, for a small kite, he was to the moon on that one. It just lacked a lot of variety, especially on the front side wall. He sort of went down the front side wall. He had a front double 10 truck, front 9 tail into front 10 tail. So the three front side rotations down there, just very similar axis, very similar.
Yeah, kind of screwed him a little bit, and especially like not drastically differentiating the grabs or the axis, etc.
When you got a front 9 tail and a front 10 tail on your last 2 hits, they're essentially the same trick with another 180. So it definitely gets docked in the variety factor.
Especially when we're in that comparison of what the other athletes are doing, and the other athletes were getting in 4 directions plus alley-oops, or having an alley-oop and 3 directions. When we're looking at variety, we're always comparing it. It's contest by contest, but that was a sticking point for him. But yeah, props for the amplitude, +5 on the gas scale.
Nice. Another one for me, looking at that one, was the young Japanese kid, Haku Shumasuke, who we spoke about in the preseason, but he's only young and he's got tricks for days, good variety. It was a good performance. He was just unlucky not to have been a bit higher in that one.
Yeah, because he went front double 10 truck, cab double 12 Indy, which is a pretty rare trick to see in the pipe. And then switchback 9 mute, cab double 10 mute, and then front 9 tail. So good progressive run, had the directions, just really landed low and squatted it out on the cab double 12. And it was that rider's right side wall, which was a bit, not necessarily oververt, but we saw a lot of athletes popping off and landing low. Some recovered fine. And unfortunately, Haku Shumasuke didn't manage to kind of carry that speed through. So that was the big low landing, squat edge change, and then kind of spoil the run. But definitely had arguably the most progressive trick or one of the most progressive tricks in finals. So kind of take that criteria.
He's only young, so he's got a big future ahead, I think. Yeah. We'll see a lot more of him, which takes us on to just off the podium, 4th place.
Yeah, Jonas Hassler from Switzerland, which is, the Swiss had a great show in here. Isabel Lucha, one of our podium athletes, which we'll get to, and then Jonas Hassler with one of his best finishes. Switchback 9 nose, cab double 10 mute, front 9 melon to tail, back 9 tail, and front double 10 Indy. So amplitude, good and consistent. Wasn't huge. It was around the 2 to 3, maybe a 4 on the gas scale, depending on which hit we're talking about. Had all the directions though, and just kind of lower trick difficulty with that front line in the
Yeah,
middle.
it's similar to Val's that one with it's the kind of the reverse of Val's. He goes melon to tail instead of tail to melon,
Yeah.
but it's also lacking a little bit in rotation because Val does his to 10 and 12.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like we've mentioned this a bunch in the previous episodes, it's not a trick helping grab change. It's very weird to go melon to tail on that front side wall. So definitely got a bit of a bonus for that. But yeah, just lacking that trick difficulty that we'd seen from our top few.
Yeah, takes us onto the podium.
Yeah.
So in third place went to Pat Bergner from Brazil.
Yeah. First Brazilian World Cup podium.
Yeah.
There's a lot of firsts at this one, wasn't there?
Yeah, and I think with Pat, he lacked some amplitude with a couple of low landings, but he definitely got the job done on difficulty and variety in that one.
Yeah. So switchback double 10 into back double chuck with his melon to Indy.
Yeah, like that grab, like we've spoken about, that grab separation and the two different tricks within that double chuck.
Yeah, which kind of sets him up to take it to blind, but he didn't this time. Followed up with front double 10 truck, cab double 10 mute, and then front 10 tail. And I kind of had the note that had the hardest trick of the combo, the switchback 10, given the kind of field we had, sort of thing. Always a trick that just aesthetically looks really cool with the last dump. And was just a tiny bit loose on the landings with the 310s at the end, which just held him back a little bit. Not edgy or any major mistakes. It was just
low. I think he just went low on all of them. And again, we said that pipe was unforgiving as far as if you land low, you don't get that speed back and it affects your amplitude throughout the rest of the run.
Yeah. And then the two front tens, at least one was a double, one was a flat, which does just come into that variety criteria.
Yeah, and that he ended up at a 79.25, which was very close for David Habeltzel in second place with an 80.
Yeah, which was his first World Cup podium, which that surprised me because he's been on the World Cup for 10 years. I just assumed that at some point he'd been on the podium, like maybe early on in his career. So that was very, again, cool to see. Doesn't affect our judgment in the slightest, but nice to have new athletes on the podium.
Totally, and he was one of the ones that got it done on his first run. He went down on the switchback 9 on run 2, but yeah, his first run got the job done for him, and that score kind of sat throughout the whole comp. No one could get up there with it.
Yeah, I think he was early to drop, so kind of sat and waited.
Yeah, it was one of the first runs of the day, and then that score sat throughout the whole comp. So
yeah, and so he had switchback 9 nose, cab double 10 mute, front double 12, back 9 mute, and then front double 10. So good, consistent amplitude, had all the variety with the directions, and had the 12 for that difficulty kind of boost in there as well. But kind of the only thing keeping him away from top spot was probably the level of amplitude and just a little shorter grab on the back 9. But no, our first place guy, amplitude was a clear winning criteria.
Yeah, and I guess that takes us on to that. It was Valentino Giseli from Australia. It was his second World Cup halfpipe win. It was quite a convincing win, this one. Like I say, I think I was quite a bit in front points-wise. He got the job done on his first run. Backside alley at 3 nose, into cab double 10 mute, front 12 with that tail to melon, and then back 7 nose into switchback 9 mute. So I guess the one of like his strengths of being able to send it. So the amplitude's there. The execution was good. He added a switch backside direction, which was lacking in copper. So now he has all 4 primary directions plus the alley-oop up top, which well and truly ticked the variety box.
Yeah, because if we look at those last 3 tricks from kind of copper to here, and copper went front 12 tail to back 9 melon into front 14 tail. Here it went front 12 tail to melon into back 7 and the switchback 9. And whilst, he's doing 7-9 at the end instead of 9-14, but the kind of the conversation around that was the boost he got from doing all 4 directions rather than having a front 12, front 14 link outweighed the slight drop in difficulty. And back 7s compared to back 9s are very close because that back 7 is still coming in super blind.
Super blind. And with that, it goes back to that switch backside. It's that rotation that a lot more riders are getting now, but those 4 primary directions are really important in pipe. So once you add that, that was definitely the one thing that was lacking in his earlier season runs, and he added it there and got to do a victory lap because of it. He put the run down first run, and on the second run, he got to go do a nice frontside air, backside air, and a couple of slashes, and claim his second win. So it was a good one for him.
It was very smart riding. And then we've seen him here in training kind of take that up the next notch and do back 10 into switch back 10.
Yeah, that looked like a new combo today that he was doing in training.
So kind of Val's always had the amplitude, had a lot of the difficulty tricks, and it's cool to see him now getting the variety in the run as well.
Yeah, I guess the other big one for that that podium there. It's the first time since 2018 that there hasn't been a Japanese rider on the podium. So that's a huge one.
Yeah, that's quite wild. Especially when you go through all of our predictions and stuff from ChatGPT, you'll notice there's always a Japanese name in the mix.
Yeah, there's just
Whatever discipline you pick.
been one of we said last time it was the first time it hadn't been sort of one of three riders winning when Rousset got up, and now it's the first time none of them have been on the podium. So it was good nation representation at this one, but yeah, very very surprising when there's no Japanese on that dais.
Yeah, exactly. It really is sort of thing. So that was the Calgary World Cup Halfpipe. It was a very cool event. Glad we got it done. It was a very cool final under the lights at night with the crowd, etc. There was a Canadian winner, so the crowd were even happier than normal. Yeah. Now we're on to Aspen.
Yeah. And last day of training was today.
Yep.
Quali's tomorrow. Looks like the weather's going to hold out for us. So that should be good. If anything comes in, it's going to blow in hopefully after we're done.
Yeah.
And we should get qualis away.
And learn some power in for some early slopestyle qualification power laps.
Totally.
Yeah. So we got halfpipe qualies tomorrow. Guess depends when you listen to this. Halfpipe qualies on Wednesday. Slopestyle qualies on Thursday. Then halfpipe finals Friday. Slopestyle finals Saturday.
Yeah, it's an intense schedule. That's what I was sort of saying at the beginning. It's just when we're not at slope, we're at the pipe. The fact that it's at two different resorts stretches us, but there's just a lot going on this week. So.
Yeah. So next episodes, we're going to actually break up Aspen into a two-parter. So we'll do a halfpipe part and a slopestyle part. We'll probably come out next week when we actually get to Larks. Manage to take a breather. We won't be riding in Larks because our board bags will get stuck in Chicago on the way there because everyone's on the same flight from Aspen to Larks.
Yeah, as well. I'm sending my board bag a different way.
Just going to mail it through. I wish they did foldable board bags, foldable boards. Anyway, future progressive idea. Anyway, that is it for this episode. If you're enjoying the pod, please share with anyone who snowboards, anyone who's vaguely interested. We're now into that kind of crucial period before the Olympics, so it's a great time to listen in and kind of understand how the judging works before you all become armchair judges. So follow us along on Spotify, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, we're on there. Follow us on social media. We're still doing our best to do some behind the scenes stuff from training and things that we see. We're at On The Knuckle, of course, on Instagram. And as you probably didn't hear because it was in the pre-show chat, but Beggsy left his iced coffee at breakfast this morning and I fortunately had to drink it. So if you would like to treat us to a coffee, buymeacoffee.com/on the knuckle, and we are very grateful for any and all support we get for the pod. It's a fun passion project, but we're really enjoying it.
Yeah, I guess that's it from now till we catch up in Larks to talk about Aspen.
Yeah, that is it. Well, tune in to Aspen when you see it on Fizz TV on YouTube. Get a VPN to Australia, and it is free to watch. So super easy, and we'll wave at you from the judge's camera in the booth. But ciao for now. Happy New Year. Enjoy the start of the new year. I hope you get some fresh snow as well, and we'll see you on the next one.
Peace.
Ciao.
Fuck, did you hit record?